Welcome and thank you for joining us on Cooking with Gerry. Let's get the fire started. I'm putting it on low heat. I'm going to add a little bit of water, not quite half a jar as you can see. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of virgin olive oil. It's important to add these two ingredients together before the pan gets too hot, because then you'll have smoking from the oil. And to this I'm going to add these vegetables. I have 2 stalks of celery. The leaves are a bit yellow, but they look okay. I had to remove some of them that had little brown marks. I like to include the leaf because I think it's healthy. I'm not sure. I've never read anywhere not to include the leaf. So 2 stalks of celery. You don't need to wait for it to heat up. It'll heat up. I'm going to add this to the frying pan with water and the oil. And I'm going to add also this piece of purple cabbage. If you haven't seen or don't know, what I do is I cut that core, but it's still got edible parts. So I cut until it gets to the point where it's a bit like wood, and that part I don't include. Same with this piece. And then I'll cut them fairly small. The order that you put the vegetables into the frying pan depends on how long the vegetables take to cook. Some vegetables take longer, like celery and cabbage. Others cook quicker. The last vegetable for this will be spinach, and I'll put that in right at the end because it only takes about 2 minutes to cook to the level I like, which is mostly raw and still a bit crunchy. And we've already got some nice colors with the green and the purple. Can you see? Can't lift it too high because the water will spill out. So that's going to cook for about 5 minutes on low heat. I try never to cook with high heat because the higher the heat is, the more damage you'll be creating during the cooking process. Really simple. This is how I prepare almost all my meals, and that's going to be, like I said, 4 minutes now because it's already been a minute, and then I'll add the spinach. In the meantime, I want to explain the other part of the dish. Let me show you. I put some into a bowl so that you could see it easier. Here it is. It's white rice, but it's become pinkish because of the beetroot. This is something I like to do. It gives an additional flavor. And it's fun to eat. Red rice. I'm going to cover that again so that the flies don't get to it. I never buy white rice. I try never to eat white rice. I'll usually do this with a whole grain wheat or a whole grain rice or quinoa or amaranth. I have white rice because a friend was here a week ago and he left me his bag of white rice because he didn't want to travel with it to his next destination. But many people eat white rice. Many cultures eat rice 2 or 3 times a day. And there are different variations. You could do everything in one frying pan or one saucepan if it's big enough. The reason why I have separated the rice from these veggies is because I made enough rice for 2 meals. It's a streamlining method for myself to save on cook time for my next meal, but it also saves on energy. I use less gas from the tank. when I do it both at the same time compared to doing it on two separate occasions. So I have extra, but you can add everything into one pot or pan, and if you want to add meat, chicken, pork, fish, beef, you could also add that to the same saucepan or frying pan, and you would add it to everything depending on mainly how big the pieces are. For example, if you have small pieces of raw chicken breast, that cooks fairly quickly. That will cook in the same time as it takes to cook the rice. If you have bigger pieces of chicken, like a drumstick or a chicken thigh, then you might want to put that in 5 or 10 minutes before you add the rice. Now with white rice, you'll need to have the appropriate amount of water. I think it's 1.5 parts water to 1 part rice. So if you're going to cook 2 cups of rice, you'll need 3 cups of water. So you imagine that's how much you're cooking. You'll put the 3 cups of water in the saucepan or frying pan, and then add the bigger pieces of meat, beef, pork, chicken, or if you have really thick pieces of fish, you would add those in as well. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, add the rice, add the beetroot, and whatever else you want to add with it. With the rice dish, I also added 1 carrot that I left into big pieces. The beetroot I cut into small pieces. And there's a difference I found with beetroot. Some have a darker red, which will give a more intense red color to the white rice. Some of the beetroot I have used are more of a pink. And some even have white stripes inside the beetroot. It depends on what you find. Also to the rice, I let everything cook for about 10 minutes. Then I added raw peanuts, about this much, that I had soaked in water for about 4 hours. I had rinsed the peanuts beforehand, put them in the water, and then after the 4 hours I drained the water, rinsed them again, and I added them to the saucepan with the rice, the beetroot, and the carrot. I also put about half a teaspoon of salt at the beginning and about a tablespoon of sunflower seed oil at the beginning. So, cooking already for 10 minutes. The rice, if you have added the meat beforehand, then everything, it'll be it'll be 25 minutes, for example, if you've allowed the meat to cook for 10 minutes before adding the rice. So I put the peanuts in when the rice was over halfway done, and then when the rice was almost done, I added sesame seed, 2 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin seed, and 1 tablespoon of sunflower seed. I had washed and rinsed all those, and I don't want to cook those for too long. It's probably better if they get soaked overnight in water or for at least 4 hours, but I didn't plan on it. It was an idea that came afterwards. And then I turned the heat off, and the rice has been sitting here now, honestly, for about 20 minutes because I got involved doing other stuff before I was able to start the video and to start cooking these vegetables. So that's the white rice. It becomes a lot more intense, the color of the red, because it's white rice. When I use the other grains, whole grain wheat, whole grain rice, or quinoa or amaranth, the redness is less intense because those items are not quite as white as white rice. So that's been cooking for long enough. Here I have spinach. I've already washed it, rinsed it, and I also like to use the stem of the spinach. So let's just get these chopped up. Doesn't need to be perfect. And these are going to cook for about 2 minutes. Now the reason why I don't buy white rice and I don't usually eat it is because white rice is very low in nutritional value. and because once it enters your stomach, it's very quickly going to turn into sugar. There are so many other options that I'll choose before I'll choose the white rice. I did it today because I have some white rice that a friend left me, and because it gives a much more intense red color, and I wanted you to see it so that maybe it gives you an idea of what you can do for one of your next meals. I also want to say that there are many people who don't like the beetroot. The water has almost all evaporated. The spinach will add a little bit of moisture, but it's only going to cook for 1 or 2 minutes. As I was saying, many people don't like the beetroot. The flavor, it's an unusual flavor. It's a little bit sweet. When I was younger, I didn't like it either. It's been part of my cooking now, a regular part of the vegetables I choose in the past 2 years. Maybe in the past 3 years. So there we got the spinach together with the celery and the purple cabbage. Many people don't like the beetroot, but they might enjoy the flavor that comes out in the white rice, and they might enjoy eating the white rice that has turned pink or red. If they don't want to eat the beetroot, you could try cutting the beetroot into bigger pieces so that it's easier for them to pick out, and maybe to give to someone who does like the beetroot. That's one option. Another option is that that person in your family or those people in your family don't even like the flavor. In which case, because rice is so easy to prepare, you could have 2 separate saucepans, one that has just the white rice and then one that has the white rice that's now red. Many people also like to add garlic during the cooking process of the rice, sometimes oil. I really like adding butter, but I don't have any butter, so I added sunflower seed oil. And so many different options. If you have leftover meat, chicken, pork, fish, it doesn't need to be cooked. I'm going to turn the fire off. That's done enough for me. If you like your veggies to be less crunchy, please continue the cooking process. If you have leftover meat from previous meals, you could add them at the end. When everything is cooked, maybe when everything is still hot, add them into that saucepan so that it heats up while everything else is still hot. I forgot where I was, maybe I'll remember, but I also wanted to say, when you're cooking rice, sometimes if you turn your back for even half a minute, the rice will bubble up and boil over. That happened to me. So what I did was I changed saucepans, I turned the fire off. I had originally started in this one, but I turned my back, and during that turning of my back, everything boiled over. So I turned the heat off, cleaned everything up, switched saucepans, and then continued to cook. The reason why I do that is because if I continue cooking with everything that's spilled over, it's going to be harder to clean at the end when it comes time to clean everything. So, as a suggestion, if that happens to you, turn everything off, clean everything up, switch saucepans, and start again. So this is my meal. What I'm going to add also, because the white rice has a lot of sugar, as I mentioned, everything else I've added has balanced out pretty well the sugar content. The beetroot has a lot of sugar, carrot has a lot of sugar, but the seeds don't. These vegetables here, they do have sugar, but there's also a lot of fiber, and the fiber will slow down the conversion into sugar. I'm going to add fish. What I have here is a can of sardines. This is also packed with tomato sauce. I can't find this kind of tin of sardine without the tomato sauce. And reading the ingredients and the taste in my mouth and what I feel in my stomach, it's not tomato sauce. There's tomatoes in the ingredients, but there's other stuff. So I don't want to eat that stuff that is not really food. So I have transferred the sardines into this container, and what I'll do is I will just pick the fish out and I'll leave the tomato sauce in this container, and at the end of the day it'll go down the sink. This will be enough for me for 2 meals. I'll split it up in half. One I'll eat right now, the other half I'll eat for my next meal. I don't want to go as far as completely rinsing out the fish and getting rid of all that tomato sauce, because there might be a mosquito. There is a mosquito. There might be some value that I'm washing away. Some value by means of the fatty omega-3 that is in the fish. It might become part of this tomato sauce, and that I don't want to wash away. So I'll just pick up the pieces of fish, put them on my plate when everything is on my plate, and I'll leave that for the day until my next meal, and then I'll do the same thing, pick out the fish, and then the tomato sauce, which is not really tomato sauce, will go down the sink. So that's how I do fish. And speaking of fish, some good information that might be useful for you. We've heard a lot about the mercury that's in the oceans because of many reasons: toxic spills, oil spills. A lot of the stuff that happens on the ground gets washed into the ocean. So there's a level of concentration of mercury in fish. And the higher up you go on the food chain with the fish life, the higher the concentration of mercury. The smaller the fish, the lower the concentration. The bigger the fish, the higher the concentration, because mercury, once it enters a living being, either a fish or a human, it doesn't go away. It stays in the body. The small fish have a lower concentration. The bigger fish eat the small fish, so they get more of a concentration of mercury. And the even bigger fish eat the other small fish and the other smaller fish. So the biggest fish has the highest concentration of mercury because it's at the top of the food chain. Tuna, for example, is at the top of the food chain. I was trying to think if there would be a fish or a shark bigger than a tuna that would eat a full-size tuna, and I didn't check on the internet, but I don't think so. So let's just say, without scientific fact, that tuna is at the top of the food chain. So tuna has the highest concentration of mercury, which means you or me, if you're eating tuna, you are actually at the top of the food chain. You're eating the tuna, which has eaten the other smaller fish. So your body is collecting the concentrated mercury that was in the top of the fish food chain with the tuna. So I'll eat tuna. I have a can of tuna once a month or less, because there's lots of other properties inside the tuna that are very healthy. I just don't make it a daily or a weekly thing, because even though the scientists decide what level of mercury is safe for a body, I have come to the decision that no mercury is safe in the human body, which leads me to eat much less fish, especially the bigger fish. That's why I go to the smaller fish. And in many grocery stores we'll have the small fish, in these cans, or the rectangular ones, or the thin round ones. And many times you can find it packed in water or in a vegetable oil. I think the best is when it's packed in olive oil. So that's what I choose when I can. It's a bit more expensive than the other packed tuna that has vegetable oil, but most vegetable oils are not healthy. So I try to avoid as much as possible, like a soybean oil or a corn oil. And we spoke once in one of the earlier videos about palm oil. That I'm not sure about, but I avoid it anyways. I use packed in olive oil whenever possible, or packed in the oil. From what I've read, it preserves the flavor and the content much better than if it's packed in water. So that was today's video. I am happy we got to this white rice with the beetroot, because it's a really fun combination of colors. You can add meat, like I said, if at the end, to make things a bit more exciting. If you still eat bacon and cheese, you could add cooked bacon and put some grated cheese on top. I was thinking in my head what kind of cheese would go good, and almost any kind of cheese. Gorgonzola, cream cheese even, a Parmesan cheese, cheddar cheese, brie would be really nice if you put that on top when everything's cooked, with enough heat still left that the cheese melts, and if you add bacon, that the bacon can heat up a little bit. I wouldn't add raw bacon at the end. You could add it at the beginning, or you could cook it in another frying pan, or if you do it in the microwave. One good way when I used to eat bacon to cook in the microwave is you wrap it up in a piece of paper towel. Put one piece of bacon, then fold the towel over, another piece of bacon, fold the towel over, another piece of bacon, until you've used the whole piece of paper towel, and then you put it in the microwave for about 2 minutes, and the paper towel will absorb a lot of the bacon fat, which is the flavor, but it could also be the unhealthy part. There was just a hummingbird. They don't usually come inside. They have their flour right there. So many different variations. I am choosing these vegetables tonight for dinner when I have the second half of the white rice, which is red. I'll add other vegetables. And the final thing I want to say is we are trying to teach the world how to eat healthier. I know that many people want to eat healthier, but they just don't know how. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to shop for the healthier food. So if you have made one of these meals, as above, and you have been able to share it, or you have been able to bring it to work as a leftover, and someone at your work sees it and they ask about it, please teach them or direct them to the video that you watched. When we have a world full of people who can eat healthy, it's going to make a big difference, because not only will the body be healthier, but the mind will be healthier. And when your mind is healthier, your choices are going to be better. Many times we make choices that afterwards we realize that they weren't the best choices. And part of that is what you eat and what you put in your body, because what you eat is eventually going to change from, for example, white rice that is red into human. And if you're eating French fries and burgers from a fast food restaurant every day or 5 times a week, that's not the healthiest food to be creating your human form. So please share these recipes or these videos with everyone you can, because the more people we have eating healthy, I believe the better world we'll have, and in the end we'll have a more peaceful world. So that's my goal with all these videos. At least one person at a time will learn something healthy, and then hopefully it'll multiply and we will have millions of people eating healthier. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a great day.